This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the church. I'm going to get on. Saying it fast because we got a lot of ground to cover in this Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla, Mark Garrigus in Salt Lake City.
I am still here. It's a beautiful day today, crisp, clear,
and clean. It's Salt Lake City, fresh out of court. I see you're dressed up. So I guess the subject at hand has got to be the Rittenhouse case. I got some
I was
clips.
looking. What do you? Yeah, why don't we just go right into the clips because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I have thoughts. I wrote something down, and I'm very curious of your thoughts about this. And we'll play the clip of the prosecutor just 1 second because I can no longer watch court, anything that has to do with court, without thinking of you in the place of the prosecutor or the defense attorney. Like, would Mark have done this? What's Mark going to say when I show him what the guy did? So the prosecutor, in his final statement a day and a half ago, I guess, was sort of going over Joseph what's his name?
Rosenbaum.
And it struck me as peculiar that he would get into the official particulars of what kind of guy Rosenbaum was or what he was up to, but we'll play you the clip.
So what does he do that night? Oh, let me tell you all the awful things Joseph Rosenbaum did. He tipped over a porta potty that had no one in it. He swung a chain. He lit a metal garbage dumpster on fire. Oh, and there's this empty wooden flatbed trailer that they pulled out in the middle of the road, and they tipped it over to stop some bearcats, and they lit it on fire. Oh, and he said some bad words. He said the N-word.
Now, it seemed like a peculiar strategy. First off, all the stuff he did sounds very nefarious, and it sounds like the exact same stuff you wouldn't want happening in your city. And it also kind of goes, well, I guess that's why if the cops are going to stand down, maybe we need Kyle Rittenhouse to come out there with his AR and enforce some laws. Like it made a whole bunch of different points, but I don't think any that helped him.
I don't understand it. It's absolutely, I think, insane. But he's looking at the jury. The proof will be in the verdict or a hung jury. But the way he minimizes those things with that tisk, 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 as if that, you're saying, oh, boys will be boys, like it was a fraternity prank. It's mind-boggling to me, but maybe he's got his finger on the pulse of that jury, and because that certainly does not. Somebody who was willing to overturn trucks, overturn a porta potty. By the way, I don't know that he knew that it was unoccupied.
It's the exact same thing I said. You don't knock first. Hello.
Oh, we burned the house. We burned the house down. Nobody was in there. So what's your problem?
Right.
And the swinging of a chain, by the way, is precisely the force that you can use deadly force against, which I hope we've got another clip, because remember that. He already conceded he was swinging a chain.
Well, I was trying to speculate, because I always think, well, what would Mark say? What would be the rationale? So, I mean, to me, I would say, look, this Rosenbaum character, I'm not a fan of his and some of his behavior, but that's not our job here today. Our job is to figure out whether he deserves to live or die. Like, I would lean into it and go, hey, if my son was Joseph Rosenbaum and he was running around the streets pushing over porta potties and lighting pallets on fire, I wouldn't be excited about that, but that's done. We're here to decide whether you deserve to die if you're going to do that stuff. But he just seemed like he went this weird direction with it. But was it because the defense tried to impugn Rosenhaus earlier, and that was a rebuttal to that?
Well, arguably, but the problem is, and I said this morning to somebody else, a case like this now, post-dismissal of the misdemeanor gun charge, is going to be focused squarely on the defendant's, the accused, Rittenhouse's mental state. That's what the jury is going to, and they're going to look at 36 pages of jury instructions and have to wind their way through that. So why you're acting this way because jurors, once they go back to deliberate, they take that job seriously. And they're going to want to see what the jury instructions say. It may be boring, but I teach my lawyers, it may be boring, and it may not win you any fans after the case is over until you get the verdict. But you need to focus like a laser on what the instructions say. You need to instruct. You have to be very professorial on what the instructions say, because that's the guidepost for the jurors. And instead of doing that, he did this frankly inexplicable closing.
Well, Gary also has a very hot recent tweet right off the Twitter sphere, and it's might echo something I've been thinking about. And it's also, be careful, because we're drifting into some really uncharted, dangerous waters here, which is, Gary says, well, you can cite your sources.
Yeah,
there.
it's two jurors are holding up the decision, outright citing backlash, and this is according to U.S. Marshals in Kenosha.
Backlash meaning possible rioting,
correct,
or whatever that could happen. So the things outside the courtroom may affect things inside the courtroom. We've known that for a while. It's interesting.
I don't know that I give much credence to that tweet. Let me tell you that I think in that same tweet chain somebody was talking about that it must be for acquittal because you can have non-unanimous. No, this has to be a unanimous verdict, number one. Number two, if somebody is reporting that, then somebody is crossed the line about what is going on in the jury room. And unless the judge brings them in and immediately asks questions about who's saying this, I'd be very dubious about that report.
Right. So we have to consider the source, and it just doesn't make sense to you that there's an inside person tweeting there. But nobody's gonna be. If they're doing that, then you're talking about a mistrial. That's it. There's no way to get around that because they've already apparently dismissed the alternates.
Right, and that's why I'd like to point out is that this is not a sequestered jury, so these jurors have all been sent home. So it's not like it necessarily came out of the courthouse. These people are all going home for the night.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought it was from inside the courthouse. All right. Well, it's a possibility, albeit remote. The bigger picture is we've all seen
By
this.
the way,
let
me give one other alternative explanation. They go home, they talk to somebody, which is also a violation of what the judges admonish them, and that somebody then tells somebody or tweets. I could see that. Two marshals, if it's being reported by the marshals or attributed to the marshals, I'd be completely dumbfounded by that. But if it's a tweet from somebody who's 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation from a juror, you're going to have a hearing first thing tomorrow morning.
I actually have some breaking news involving marshals. Marshals are about to kick Mark out of the room he is using to record reasonable doubt.
Oh, really?
So we have to bid him adieu.
Really?
Yes, that is actually happening right now. I'm getting a text from Mark's team who are behind that camera there, and he has got to go.
Well, I'll mop up your Marshall sloppy seconds. It's like the Candyman. Okay. You evoke his name, and they appear. All right, Mark. We'll see you. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
I'll talk to Gary about this. So, anyone who's listened to me knows my theory on Rotten Tomatoes scores, and my theory and how I'll bring that back to the Rittenhouse trial. The theory on my Rotten Tomatoes scores is you tell me what the score is and then tell me what the theme of the movie is. So if it's about the gay black guy who's, struggling with his sexuality and his sister has special needs, I'll go, okay, all right, it got bumped up because of that. You tell me another theme, I'll start working the theme into the score. Now, I don't want to do it that way, but that's just where we're at right now. And how that pertains to the Rittenhouse trial is all the evidence that I've seen looks like he's innocent, but that then we have to factor the theme in now. Now, we shouldn't have to do it. We shouldn't want to do it. I blame a lot of the news agencies for foisting this upon us, but let's be realistic. There's A, what the evidence is, and then B, the zeitgeist of society and which way the wind is blowing and what's going on outside politically outside of the courthouse. So now you go, well, I've seen all the evidence and it looks like this kid's going to walk, but we're at a dangerous inflection point where someone goes, but not so fast. Because a lot of those jurors, you know, they live in that town. It may burn. They may just want to go home to a quiet night and not have to deal with the aftermath of their decision. And now they're factoring it in. And even if they don't say they're factoring it in, you can't help but factor it in. I mean, you got kids. The kids got to go to school the next day. You're going to get doxxed. I mean, how is that possible not to factor this in?
It's not.
It's not. So when the news grabs it, calls him a militiaman and a white supremacist, and he's out hunting people that night, and they just run with that theme, it's hard to unring that bell, and especially when enough people digest that information, it's going to factor in. I mean, the Derek Chauvin trial was a perfect example. There was evidence enough there for manslaughter. I have no idea how you hang murder on that guy, and there's no way that in a vacuum of whatever political's going on and the nights and nights of unrest and the burning and the looting and the rioting, there's no way you can hang murder on Chauvin minus that environment. You can hang manslaughter on Chauvin, but you can't hang murder on Chauvin unless the rest of society has crept into the juror's room and then influenced the jury. And that's just where we're living now. That's the time we're living in. I don't know what to do about it, but someone's got to do something about it, because your innocence or guilt shouldn't be based on whether Trump is the president or Biden's the president, or there was another racially based cop shooting that took place in another county at the exact wrong time to get the people out into the streets. How much outside which way the wind is blowing politically do you want inside of your trial?
Mine? None.
None. Right. Because you're just on the losing end usually, and especially when CNN and the ladies of The View have already essentially convicted you in the jury room or the court of public opinion. Now it's going to be hard to undo that for a lot of people when they go in there. And look, everyone's number one, what's built into all men is self-preservation. It is just self-preservation. The number one, people go like, what's the number one quality? Good, bad, evil, kindness? No, self-preservation. Self-preservation. Everyone just goes, I don't want any fucking trouble. You take a look at the whole COVID situation. Do you know how much of it is driven by people just going, fuck it, I'll wear the mask outside. Like, I just don't want to be called out. I don't want any hassle. I don't want any trouble. All these businesses, no more outdoor dining. Yeah, okay, I just don't want any trouble. Okay. That's the number one quality in human beings is I just want to keep walking. I don't want any trouble. Well, if you're taking the number one quality built into every human being and then bringing it into the courtroom and then realizing that you make this one decision, your life could be ruined, possibly lost, threatened, kids, family, livelihood, whatever. I mean, there were cops. There's a story of a cop, I think it was out of the Denver area, maybe Salt Lake City or whatever. He anonymously gave $10 to the Rittenhouse Defense Fund. They found this guy and they fired him. So there's plenty of examples of your life being ruined if you're on the wrong side of an issue. He was a cop. He saw the evidence. He thought, this kid looks innocent, and he made some nominal donation to his defense fund anonymously.
It was $25 out of Norfolk, Virginia.
Right. Well, somehow somebody leaked the information or hacked into it or something, and that guy lost his job as a police officer for donating to a defense fund of a guy he thought was innocent. I mean, that's where we're living right now. By the way, why that stuff is okay is insane to me. I'm not a litigious person, but I hope there's 1,000 class action lawsuits or just lawsuits against people getting shit canned. I hope Gruden sues the fucking NFL.
Oh, he did.
Good. Sue the fuck out of everyone. Everyone who was just shit canned from their job because somebody dug up an email or found out that you... it's perfectly lawful to donate to a defense fund.
The Gruden one is, I've been salivating at that one. I'm watching it super carefully, and it's interesting because the fact that the NFL is not a corporation but an association means that they are losing out on some legal protections they would have if they weren't incorporated.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So he gets to sue them in Nevada where he wants to, as opposed to them being able to take it somewhere federal where it's more friendly to them. So he gets to go in his own state. And yeah, it's going to be so fun to watch.
So Kamala Harris donates to some relief fund to get BLM protesters out after they've been arrested. She's vice president. That's no problemo there. But the cop gives $25 to the Rittenhouse defense fund, and he's shit canned. Okay, that's where we're living. Now, do you think those jurors want to deal with what that cop is dealing with?
Absolutely not. And, you can take it a step further, which is all of a sudden, what's most people's biggest asset?
Their livelihood, their home.
Their home. Right. So if all of a sudden your community riots, your property value goes to shit, and you may owe more than your home is now worth, even though you've lived there for 20 years.
Spot on, Gary. This show's so much better without Mark. It really is.
Mark's texting me apologizing. He said he's got to keep tight with the marshals.
We got a certain chemistry.
There you go.
Mark's fine.
Yeah.
But
sure.
he just kind of gets in and kind of gets in between us.
It's great when he's available, but not necessary.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's talk to those marshals. All right. You can go to adamcarolla.com. Doing a couple of shows in Brea coming up December 15th. We're going to tape them. TJ Miller's going to be there. Patrick Warburton. And you can check out and subscribe to Reasonable Doubt's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast. And also our Pluto TV channel, 687. All the free stuff, all the movies. And Going Racing with Adam Carolla, all there. So, till next time. Adam Carolla for Gary Smith and Mark Garriga saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Stay tuned for more bonus episodes coming soon.